Hello everybody and welcome to TJ's Lego Room. And today I'm excited to show you the mock that goes along with my latest set of instructions. And that is the ASF-05 Ultimate Blade Wing. Ta-da! Now, like I said, this is what I call at least the ultimate blade wing. So it's a B-wing but in its ultimate form. And the genesis of this thing is that while I was contemplating a way to put pieces back to back, I stumbled upon a couple of techniques that I sketched out really quickly because I wasn't actually in the Lego room at the time. It didn't take long once I actually got into the Lego room to discover that the original idea didn't actually work, but eventually I came across a way to use brackets to create the finished product where it would be smooth on each direction: top, bottom, left, right, front, back. And from there, the ultimate blade wing was finally born. Once the original iteration of this design was complete, I made very few changes, but I did include some really fun features and techniques that I had never experienced before in anything I had built or anything that I had thought of before. And a lot of these techniques I actually used on later mocks as well, but I have a few mocks coming up that use some of these techniques, and I'm excited to show you guys those eventually as well. So this is a very influential piece of my collection. I'll be going over a lot of the cool features and details a little bit later in the video, but before I got too far, I wanted to quickly let you know that after months and months of asking and over a month of work, I finally got the entire instruction book put together and up on rebrickable.com. So I hope you guys appreciate the work that went into it. I got stuck on the rotation mechanism in the middle, trying to figure out the exact process to put that together. And so anyway, I hope you enjoy and I hope you appreciate the amount of work that went into it. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about some fun details, shall we? Look at that thing. Oof. I think this thing looks fantastic. So I designed it originally as the ultimate end-all bomber for the New Republic. But even though I think I did a great job to bring it towards them, I was pretty sure I was never going to get the contract for the design work. Even before the destruction of the Hosnian system, I was pretty sure that Slane and Corporal, the company who originally made the being, were probably going to be the ones who get the contract. Just because, you know, they were the ones who made the original designs during the time of the Empire. And I'm not 100% sure about this, but I have a suspicion that one of their CEOs has a kid that is on the military contract committee for the New Republic. So anyway, but sour grapes aside, let's jump into some of the coolness, all right? Let's go ahead and zoom in. So this particular cockpit does not have a full 360-degree rotation like we've seen with a lot of B-wings in the past. But it actually is limited by what I incorporated here. So this little chain here, I kind of imagined that it would drive the actual cockpit and rotate it as the ship was moving around. Now the chain doesn't actually move at all, and the cockpit moves around it, as you can see here. But I always kind of imagined that it would have an attachment point inside there, and that's actually what would end up rotating the cockpit section and the pod section as it would rotate around and go into different positions. The very front here consists mostly of communication dishes and antennas, but it could be retrofitted with any necessary targeting, like communications or jamming systems even. Also, I was really happy with the backwards windscreen on the cockpit. I'm still surprised sometimes at how well some of these pieces come together with just minimal gaps, and they still give the pilot an unsurpassed visibility. I mean, it's, of all the ships that I have and all the Star Wars vehicles, this vehicle probably has the best visibility because it wraps behind him with the windscreen and it doesn't have a lot of stuff in the way, which is pretty good. Another fun little tidbit, I was actually trying to make this a two-seater vehicle because this ship is pretty big for only a single person to pilot. But when I built the two-seater version of it, this pod section looked ridiculously huge. Even with as big as this thing is, the pod section was just way too huge when I tried to get a two-seater on there. So went down to a single seat, and although it is super huge for a character, I think you could easily explain that away by having like an integrated droid section somewhere in here, so that you know, the pilot wouldn't have to specifically control every single subsystem here. I think it would be, I think it'd make sense to have that, actually, at least in this specific case. The upper neck of the ship is almost completely solid. So this whole section here, like, you can actually lift the entire ship from that section because of how solid that one piece is. This section in universe would be where the majority of the power supply and the fuel would be stored. It was pretty intense to get the rotation chain integrated into this section, though, and so there wasn't a lot of room originally inside here to do anything, so trying to get all the different angles and everything. But when I went through and redesigned it, it actually had a lot more area in here that I could eventually see being able to integrate, like some landing gear or some other cool little feature. It doesn't have that right now. I actually didn't even think B-Wings had landing gear until I did some extra research into them and found out that I always thought that they had like repulsor lifts that kept them off the ground. But it turns out they actually do have landing gear. A lot of them show that it's in the engine section. Unfortunately, that's not going to work for this particular ship because, well, you'll see the engine section in a little bit, in just a minute, and I'll show you why I couldn't fit landing gear in there. So anyway, I could probably put some integrated landing gear in here at some point, but that's not something that I'm doing right now. I have a history with landing gear. I'm not the best at it, but I still have that desire to try to integrate it if at all possible in the future. Yeah, landing gear has just always been hard for me. But let's go to the engine, the middle engine now. So the center engine is both my most impressive achievement on the ship and also the one that people critique the absolute most. When I was designing the ship, a modification of the engines was always part of the deal. Only originally I had a single round intake with 4 thruster nozzles on the back, very reminiscent of the original B-Wing. But eventually, once I came across the idea of integrating the S-foils and making this whole area smooth through here, that kind of solidified the idea that I needed a round back end, round thruster section as well, so that it kind of kept that round look all the way through and made it, the wing, the S-foil mechanisms much more integrated into the actual ship. I'd actually done this once before with another B-Wing that looked very similar to one of the original Lego sets that just had a lot of plates together. If you look on my channel, you can see that my other B-Wing, the wings folded in and actually completely were hidden, which is pretty cool. But anyway, that's kind of the justification as to why I ended up going with the round engine for the front, but also on the back just having a single round thruster. It was also that I could have that nice round look without having to make any kind of transition there. Kind of made it really uniform and made the S-foil mechanism basically disappear, which is pretty cool, if I say so myself. So if we move down now to the S-foil sections, the lower part of the blade, the lower blade part, is actually slightly recessed, allowing the wings to fold partially into the lower body. So if I pop it up a little bit here, you can actually see that I have 2 layers of plates that actually disappear into the main part of the blade. And that was one of the parts that was always part of the original design. It was already a primary design goal ever since the beginning. Like I mentioned, I had done this once before with another ship, but never to this degree, where I was able to hide multiple layers that go into the main part of the blade. Basically trying to get the wings to disappear once they were folded in. The laser cannons, though, actually created an additional challenge because they are taller. They are bigger than the blade parts. And so I actually had to build a cool little channel inside here, a nice larger recessed area, so that the cannons would fit right down inside like that. So you can see it kind of disappears a little bit inside there. And that was actually a really fun challenge to kind of put upon myself to do. But it ended up looking really good and working really great. I was pretty excited. This craft is armed with some of the heaviest weaponry available. So not only do we have the two S-foil mounted laser cannons, but they also have an ion cannon down at the bottom. I'll show you in a second. These laser cannons are actually so big that they kind of blur the line between what a laser cannon and a turbo laser are. So while they're much larger than most laser cannons on spaceships and things like that, they're not quite the size of a turbo laser like we see in on the Death Star. Those giant turrets that are shooting at the X-wings and Y-wings when they went against it in A New Hope. So they're not quite as big as those, but they are quite a bit larger than the usual laser cannons. So this ship isn't really meant for dogfighting. This is definitely more of a capital ship destroyer, for sure. So to help with the capital ship destruction, it does have the ion cannon down at the bottom. And I actually thought of some fun ideas and some reasons why the ship has this shape and why it has a cannon clear on the other end away from the cockpit. And my idea was that this ion cannon is so powerful that if any of the discharge kind of leaches off into the rest of the ship, it can do a lot of damage. And so they put this as far away from as possible from the critical and vital systems of the ship. So that's why, so that just in case there is a little bit of discharge, it's not going to damage the ship that you're actually on, even when you're using such a powerful ship. So yeah, so you've got on one end, you've got the cockpit and all the fuel and everything, and on the other end is that massive ion cannon, just protecting the rest of the ship from it by sticking it clear out on the end. Anyway, that was a kind of an inter-universe idea that I had on why that could possibly work. So now we're going to go ahead and switch over to the opening and closing of the wings. Now I will apologize real quick. I can't actually fit the entire view of the model vertically like this, but we are going to go ahead and focus on the middle so you can kind of see how the rotation mechanism works. Now you'll see that I've got a nice little stand for this thing, which is a little different than what I had before. I do have the instructions for the stand available on Rubricable as well, and those are free because it's just a little stand. But the cool part is you can mount it vertically like this, or you can actually lay it on its side on like a 45-degree angle. Very similar to what the UCS B-wing stand is able to do. So you can kind of put this next to it and have it be part of your display, hopefully, and hopefully you enjoy it. Now, when you're putting this together, there are a couple of things you need to know, and I'll just kind of show you real quick. So number one is that these wings, these S-foils, are actually kept in place by a stud on either side. And it helps hold it right against the inside so they don't flop around when you're trying to move it around or it's on display. So when you want to do that, you just want to pop those loose real quick before you lift them up. But then to fully lift them up, what you're going to do is you're going to grab the engine section, and it doesn't really matter which direction you're looking from, but you're going to turn your right hand kind of away from your body and your left hand towards your body in like a twisting motion like this. So let's show you. Ta-da! And that is how you open the wings. So I'm pretty excited with how this ended up working. And if we look on the inside, right underneath those wings, you can see right here that this ship is armed to the teeth. So as far as missiles and torpedoes go, this thing can hold 14 different missiles and torpedoes in any kind of a combination. And this is really awesome because originally it had four possible targets that it could hit simultaneously. So between those 14 targets, you could go to a capital ship and it could target 4 different subsystems on the ship and just take them all out at once. If anybody plays Star Wars Squadrons, you know what kind of subsystems you want to destroy. So this ship was built to be a capital ship destroyer. However, this particular model up here has some targeting lasers up here as well, an additional 8 targeting lasers. And again, if you've played the different starship battles in Battlefront 2 or Squadrons, then you'll know that when somebody gets a missile lock on you, it lets you know. Your ship will alert you that, hey, somebody's got a missile lock. So this thing can target up to 12 different ships at the same time. Now, you wouldn't necessarily want to target 12 different ships. Like I said, this is a capital ship destroyer. But if you can get those missile locks on, you can play the psychological game that will freak people out, and they'll try to break the missile lock or try to get away or alter the way that they're playing, and possibly the way they're playing. Well, I'm thinking about the game. But alter the way they're flying and possibly give your allies the opportunity to take advantage of any mistakes they might make when they start to panic, knowing that they've got a missile lock on them. So a little bit of a psychological game there, which is pretty fun. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed that video. It's kind of a deep dive into some of the choices that I made when I was designing this craft, and I hope you learned something. Again, last time, the instructions are up on Rubricable right now, and I appreciate everybody who's been willing to support me in this, and everyone who encouraged me to actually finally get these instructions done. Sometimes a little bit of a push is all we need to make ourselves better in our life. So that'll be it for now. So until next time in TJ's Lego Room, play well. Bye.